welcome to my studio. I want to start working on the paperclay project today. You'll have to forgive me with the multiple camera angles. The purpose of doing it is to try to compensate for occasions where I drift out of camera, and this has been the best solution I could come up with. So let's go ahead and get started. Seashell piece that I found at the yard sale. Actually, I have two of them, and I'm going to sculpt a face that's going to sit on the front here. I found this about a month ago, and I'm finally going to get around to doing it. I would usually use polymer clay because that's my preferred clay that I like to sculpt with, but for this, paper clay is going to work out better. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so we now have two different angles recording. Okay, so pardon with me as I learn here. This is a new setup again. I had to take the other thing apart because my computer crashed, and I had to go through the entire thing setting everything up again. But it's over. It's done now. We're ready to go. Okay, so again, what we're going to do today, what I'm going to do, and hopefully you can follow along, is I'm going to use creative paper clay, and I keep it in this snap top glass container because it keeps it from drying out better than the Ziploc bags do. So we're going to use aluminum foil to build up the armature for the face, the base of it, and we're going to use hot glue to attach the foil to this piece, and then I will reinforce it. I will glue a piece of wood like this onto the back that will also keep it sitting flat when it's hanging on the wall by the little hooky thing here. So I'll probably do that first because I'm going to use hot glue to do that as well. So let's start there, and I'm going to use a fair bit of hot glue there, and I'm going to make sure I don't attach it too high up because it'll interfere with that hanger. And I want it pretty much centered. Okay. Now, next step is get your foil out. Ooh, it looks like I'm going to use all of this. Not much left in there. Okay. Yep, that was the whole package of that. And recycle you go. And I hope I have enough. Okay. Problems with recording live, which is why I don't record live. I can always edit it out if I feel the need. Okay, so I want to get a general idea here if this is going to be enough of an armature, and I'm keeping it really fluffy for a reason. I'm going to leave a little bit of extra space below it because I want the ability to, that's actually upside down. I want the ability to maybe add like a little ruffly collar or something, and I'll need something to attach that to as well. Okay, so that looks like it's about the right size. But I was saying I like to leave this really loose because I'm going to make sure that the clay attaches itself directly to this, and if I make this really tight and compact, I won't be able to do the indentations I need to set the eyes into this after I get it all attached and start adding the clay. If I need to push the eyes deeper, I can't do it if this is packed really tight with that gouging into it. And while you can do a base layer and let that dry completely with the paper clay, which isn't a bad idea, but for doing a video, it's just really not possible. the ideal thing is to be able to compress this. Now with polymer clay, you want to go the other way. You want to firm this up as much as possible because it has to support the clay in the oven. But for the paper clay, it air dries, it's not a problem. Now, how far up on here do I want it is another question. I kind of like the idea of this bit right here looking like it's part of a headdress and not something growing out of the ears. So I don't want it too high. So I think that's probably it right there. And just to make sure things don't drift while I'm working, and this is going to be a lady, so I want to narrow how much of this jaw sticks out. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to mark on here, just in case I have it move around while I'm doing these other things. And yes, I do use tape because it also firms this up a bit, and I can also tape it down at least to the paper part, but it also keeps the paper clay from ending up down in those little holes, which I don't want. Now I'm not going to tape this to the shell. I'm going to tuck it underneath like that, but I am going to tape it down here, at least for now. So I'll let one or two of these pieces touch that. And if I do put a piece just to stabilize going up this way, it'll be temporary, and I'll take an X-Acto blade later and slice that piece off once I get it to adhere to the piece on its own, to the shell. And I'm doing this right now without taping it down, because once I get the tape over this piece, I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to put hot glue, and then I'm going to put it down again, because the hot glue is going to hold that to this while I add my clay. Okay, and I probably will fast forward through this part a little bit, so that should go now. Okay, now your eye line, where's a marker? Marker, there we go. Your eye line is usually going to be about halfway on the mask, and then your nose is about halfway down from that, and then the mouth is at the halfway point from there. Now that changes depending on the person's face. Here's my center line. Boy, that's a crooked center line, but that's going to be how I'm going to build this face. And I want to cut this tape away, or at least loosen it up at the eye line, because I'm going to be pushing the eyes into those holes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try these eyes on for size. I have a nice pair of blue 20s. Actually, I'm going to unplug this hot glue gun because I don't need it. Oh wait, what am I thinking? Yes, I do need it. It's just in the way, and I don't want to end up burning anything because it's just sitting there hot. Okay, so your eyeball should be 1/5 the width of the size of the head. This 20 may be a little big. I might want to step down to an 18 if I can find one. Okay, so you have 1. This is the width here. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this eye is a little big. So let's go to an 18 then. And that's a 16, which goes in the other box. Now these are acrylic eyes. Acrylic eyes are usually actually really nice eyes. Ooh, that one's green. Isn't that pretty? All right, we're going to use the green one then. Ooh, wait. Don't you love it when you can't decide? I have green and I have this interesting blue. I think I'll go with the green. Okay, so now I've chosen the green. Because this is flat, and pushing that in would have it sticking out the back, or I'd have to really pile clay on top. I usually take these and pop the front part away from the back part, which you have to be really careful doing this, because if that blade jumps, it's going to get you. So just take your time. There you go. And you can separate the front part of the eye, which makes it a lot easier to use on a flat back piece than having that little tubey bit sticking out. Okay, and this will actually also allow me to, I mean, if you want to use this part, you can. You're just going to have to really jam it in there, make a hole, which you can do with a stylus tool, something like this, and just pop a big deep hole in there, which I'm going to have to make a hole either way. You can pop that right in there like that and really shove it in there. Get it over where you want it. And remember, at this point, you're going to add clay here. So it is going to be wider than what you're seeing right now. You can also try to aim it in whatever direction you want to this way, or you can use this version of it with the piece popped off and just kind of manipulate a shallower hole for it like this. And again, the this tool, there we go. You're going to end up with an eye that's not going to be able to move around quite as easy. I'll do one and one just so that I've showed you how to do both versions. And you want to make sure there is a distance between them that is equal to the width of the eye. So you're going to have clay added on this side, you're going to have clay added on this side, and you want an equal distance between the eyes. Okay, and the hardest part is tracking, making sure that both eyeballs are looking in the same direction. Which, you know, I may I may have just changed my own mind, because I was able to just then reach underneath and adjust that eyeball from the back, which I haven't made one like this in so long I kind of forgot you can do that. Even once it's glued down, I will still be able to manipulate it from behind because of the little gap right here. I can push a tool in there and move it wherever I need to get them looking in the same direction, and then I will hot glue it so it can't ever move again. But in the meantime, I can stick a tool back in there. One like this will do, with a little hook. Reach in there, find the back of the eyeball, and then I can adjust it if it needs to be, if the tracking goes out while I'm working. Okay, so now I'm going to affix the top part of this to the frame. I kind of wish I had taken a minute to, well, I have the other one, because I might repeat this pattern that's going to be lost behind the shell, maybe on the front, on the forehead, as part of her decorative details. Okay, so this glue that I'm putting on the piece will hold that down, and because, like I said, because of that gap right there, as you can see in camera 2, I will still have access to underneath of this to adjust the eyes if I need to later on. Right now I just need to make sure they stay far enough apart so that I don't end up with it looking cross-eyed or anything like that. And one brow, bring this back a little. Okay. Now you want to make your face contouring something that you keep in mind as you're sculpting. This is a paper clay piece that I did a couple weeks ago. Actually, it's longer than that, but anyway, you want to decide if you want the eyes really deep set, which is a fairy feature, and their noses are usually pretty flat and small. Human features, the eyes maybe wouldn't be as deep set as these are, but you have to make sure that you set them in and that the eye slopes back and away so that when you look at the profile of the face, you're looking at the side of the eyeball. So when you're making your armature, let me get this. Make sure it's sitting flat, because if it's not sitting flat, you're going to sculpt your face crooked. And I don't know why this isn't sitting flat, but it's not. Okay, anyway, this you're going to want it to contour away, and because you're going to pile clay on top of here, you're going to bury your eyeballs. So I'm going to take my stylus and kind of compress this area here and get it to roll down so I'm not burying this eye too deeply. But at the same time, you don't want to do away with your forehead. And I have a really bumpy forehead going on here, which a bumpy armature with polymer clay isn't as big a problem as it is with paper clay. I find the smoother I can make my paper clay armature, the easier it is to get a smooth finish on that piece. So the deep indents that are in the foil are fine because they help keep it all lighter and you don't use as much clay, but they are semi-problematic in that it makes it harder to smooth that clay. Not impossible, but harder. And you know, I'm a kid of the 80s, so work smarter, not harder. I try not to do things that I know are going to make it harder on me as I'm sculpting. Okay, so she's going to have a fair bit of chin here, and like I said, you want to make sure you're not fighting your armature. Okay, now I will be building up on this mandible area here with a little more clay than the rest of the face. But I also want it to look a certain way when it hangs, so that if you hang it up high, I don't know how to show you that on camera, but if you hang it up high, she's kind of looking down at the viewer instead of at an angle where you really can't see her whole face. Okay. But I also don't want to leave her with no ability for a neck here, so you have to build it up a little bit. But I just want her chin to come up because I want the look of a very slight face. Okay. Anyway, I will ramble, so I'm going to try not to. All right, so now we go to the clay itself, which is, well, it can be a little messy, so I recommend that you have a jar with water in it to rinse your fingers from time to time, or they're going to get gummy and gooey, and instead of smoothing, I just use an old glass jar I can reach my fingers in. Excuse me, reach my fingers in and rinse them off so that I can go fresh again. And if you have If you have a paper towel, that works too. If you prefer, you can use a pack of baby wipes. Unlike polymer clay, the baby wipes won't leave any kind of weird residue or anything on your clay, or affect it adversely if you decide. Okay. I better put a little water in there. This has gotten pretty firm. Won't hurt anything though. I like it a little bit firm. But you can do a little bit of, make sure you can see, just a little tiny bit of water in there, which I do every time I put the pack away, because that water, while it'll soak into one spot fully, it'll just help keep moisture in the bag. Okay, you can wet your hands a little bit and hydrate this clay, because it is a little firmer than I would like. See how it's kind of crumbling? So we get to do that lesson as well, since the clay provided the necessity. And you just hydrate it a little. And just keep sort of mashing it between your fingers. Make sure you get it hydrated and push the dry spots away so it's all moist and you won't end up with any cracking later. Normally you don't have to condition a fresh pack of clay, but I had to do a little bit of work to a mask, a vintage one that I picked up. It's a Boson, what is that? Chalkware. That's the word. Boson chalkware mask, and I bought a set of them at the flea market. Such a lucky deal. And the one had been dropped, I guess, and its entire nose was missing and had all kinds of chunks of other things missing. And the epoxy clay didn't seem to want to stick to it without making the problem worse. So I decided to use paper clay instead, and I didn't have an open pack, so I opened that one, and it worked great, actually. Maybe I'll throw a picture up there of what it looked like before, well, what it looked like with the paper clay on it and then painted. I didn't take a before picture because I wasn't thinking about it as an art project, but it needed some pretty serious restoration. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and knead that a little bit. Add a little more water in there. I'll have to do that again for the next group of clay, and I will either cut away or fast forward it. Okay, so that's done. The clay is all conditioned now, and we'll get going forward. Okay, so again, you just want to condition it to make sure that it's all meshing together and that the fibers are connecting and interlocking and not just pressed up against each other. If it was dry. If it's a fresh pack, it's already like that. You don't have to do too much to it. All right, so the top part is actually going to touch the shell. So let me turn it so you can see. I'm actually pushing it down so that it's going in and touching the shell. And I'll do some hot glue later, which will be down here under the paper clay after everything dries. And you just wet your fingers and come back and rub along the surface like this. And that's going to smooth out that clay. Use even pressure and you will get a nice smooth less bumpy surface. You can also use like a rolling pin tool and just very carefully. Now you're not rolling, you're kind of just moving it along, because if you roll, let me show you, it's going to do that. Can you see? Well, it leaves texture. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it ends up looking like plaster, you know, where they do the texture on the plaster. That's what it ends up looking like. And it covers your rolling pin in bucky goop. Whereas if you just kind of use it as a smoothing tool, it doesn't do that. Okay, now the next chunk. And again, I'm keeping it in there so it stays nice. Just keep adding a little bit of moisture as you go to make sure everything stays nice and knitted together, which it needs water to do. Where it needs to go. And there's no rule that says you can't grab your knife and cut this if you've added too much. You can sculpt it away, shave some off, whatever you have to do to get it where it needs to go. And paper clay, if, say I stopped here with this sitting the way it is, if this dries, all I have to do to add more clay is wet it. Water is what makes all these fibers stick together. Water and a small amount of adhesive, I would imagine. If you're trying to stick it to a surface that's being problematic, you can actually work a little bit of like Elmer's glue into this clay, and it happily sticks to it. It just makes it way more sticky than it was to begin with. And just be mindful that you don't bury the eyes by putting such a thick layer of clay on that they just disappear down into the head. And I'm just bulking this up right now, and more decisions will be made as to how much clay I need or don't need. Okay, and the eye is turning on me, so I'll have to go fix that. Right now I am just trying to, yeah, this other camera is a good idea. What you can't see on the one, you can definitely see on the other. Okay, and again, I have that tool here. There it is. I can get under here. I'll try to get that eye to go back where I want it. Get some of that clay out of my face here so I can see. Alright, eyeball, where are you at? Where is it? Huh. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. I got it with my thumb, actually. Okay. Make sure it doesn't come this way too far, because, like I said, you want to be able to see this side of the eye. You want to make sure you have an equal distance between them. So I have too much clay over here for sure. Take some of that away again. Give that a little bit of water, and then I can let it sit there. And just keep wetting things. I mean, you don't want to soak it, but you also don't want to leave it to its own devices, because it will do all sorts of bad things. Okay, that eye is definitely set too deep. So I'm going to stick a little bit of clay right there, which will help keep it from going in so deep. Make sure they're level this way too, up and down. Okay, look at me. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so you've got your temples up here past the brow. Dip in a little. And just keep wetting your hand. Make sure this stays moist while you're working on it. Now that happened because it lifted up off the surface while I was trying to move the eye clay around. Okay, making good progress. And I like to bulk up the whole face and figure out where things are sitting, and then go back and either carve in detail or add more clay to get the detail that I want. So that is what I'm going to do. It's what has worked for me with paper clay so far. Now, this is not the only way to do it. I'm not saying anybody else's version is wrong. It's just the way I like to do it. And if it helps you, then that's good. I'm trying to remember to speak up because I do typically speak a little softer, just the way I speak. Okay, again, just condition it a little bit. Okay, bring this down here, and just to make sure all these bits knit together, I'm going to put my whole hand like this, flat over her forehead, and I'm mostly pushing down on the shell. But as I'm pushing here, if I don't want things to move around, I need to put a lot of pressure right here to make sure that this clay I'm adding knits together properly with the clay that I already added, so it doesn't dry and crack in that location. Okay, and it's very hard to balance which angle is best for you. I'm also trying to see. Okay. Put that back in here just for the heck of it. Okay, and I think this is probably enough clay overall because I want a very slight feminine face. None of the features to be too big or end up looking masculine. Okay, and just going to seam all of this together for the moment. Try to see if I have the shape that I want. Oops, sorry, it's my elbow. Alright. Oh, that was good. Turned it into Frankenstein. Whoa! And you see this curve that started on its own? Okay. Let's straighten this line back up. Alright. Bring this cheek over here. Chin raising up already. Draw a line. Okay. And I can feel that this has lifted up off the surface. It's hollow under there right now, which is not what I want. But I do want to go ahead and get my chin where I want my chin. Okay, ladies, let's And I'm going to take a little clay out here and a little clay out here because that's a very round face, more than I want. Again, a little water. Go in and just kind of rub it and rouge like that. Just keep rubbing little tiny circles with your fingers. Just think of the texture on your hands as sandpaper. Polishing it with very fine sandpaper. And the water helps to facilitate that and get that surface pretty smooth. Again, push that in and back so the profile of the eye shows. And they just keep sinking in. I have to pull them up a little. Put some more clay in there. This one especially is wanting to sink in. It's pretty good. Okay, a little more clay. I should have enough clay here for the nose and the mouth. Make sure it stays wet. Okay. Keep wetting it. Take a little bit of clay here and go above the eye. Nope, make it longer. Just I'm not gonna leave that there. I'm gonna pull it back out. I'm just trying to see if I have just buried this eyeball too deep. Yeah, I think that's too deep. I'm gonna have to pull that back out also. Okay, I can do it from underneath. Yep, there it goes. Which I might be able to, push it back up later if it sinks while I'm doing the rest of this. Alright, first off, let's fill this hole here between the eyes so that they stop moving closer together. That's all I'm doing, is just filling that gap a little bit. I don't want anything to be so thick that this cracks while it's drying. So I'm trying to avoid that if at all possible. It's always a good idea to turn the face around and look down the face, because you're going to see something that you didn't see at the other angle. Like that you have more clay on one side than the other, just because that's what I'm seeing. Okay, a little clay above the eye here. See what I'm looking at. Make sure everything stays moist while you're going, or you're going to be digging it out and doing it again. Okay, and now, normally if I want a really human looking piece, I will get a photograph out of a person, an actress, whatever, and that's what I'll go with. But this is going to be kind of a more stylized face, not perfectly human, kind of a deco look, not super realistic either. Okay. definitely want it to be female, so okay. And I'm going to, this is a little bit different than how I do with polymer clay because the paper clay is not as easy, I think, to manipulate later unless you go in with a Dremel and work on it. Yeah, I think I have too much brow here, so I might end up shaving some of that off. And these eyeballs are definitely wanting to creep close together. Over there. Get over there. There we go. I have a tear duct in there anyway, so. And you need to slope out like that. The corner of the eye should be exposed, and the eyelid should follow the curvature of the eye. So it's deeper in the corner, and it's deeper on the outer side there. You can also use a paintbrush to smoothen that crease, because a hard tool is going to, if you wet it, only wet it a little bit, but the paintbrush, you can get in there and smooth that, whereas maybe even your fingers are a little fat for the job. But I find with paper clay, you just have to kind of go at it, because every time you stop, unless you went back and wet the surface, which you can do with a spray bottle, you don't have to keep using a paintbrush or your fingers, you can do it with a spray bottle. Things start to harden up, and then you can't amend them as easily without letting it fully dry, and then use a Dremel or sandpaper or something along those lines. Okay, so I'm smoothing down below the eye a little bit here. Smoothing along the side of the eye there. We need a nose, because this has no nose. Oh, hold on. I lost my, there we go. Sorry, my computer decided to shut off. I have to keep looking at it to make sure you can still see what I'm doing. And it shut itself off. Still recording though, yes. I had posed a question on my Facebook page, on the channel's Facebook page, what people liked and didn't like about YouTube tutorials, and a lot of people said they don't like when people cut away or do things off camera. And I can tell you from my experience, it's not intentional. A lot of times it's just that you turn it off for a minute to do something, and you come back and you think you hit the button and turned it on. I'm just rinsing my hand off again. You think you turned it on, but then you find out you didn't. So, okay. Just cleaning some of that excess clay off of myself. Okay, so here I need to, come on here, let's get dried out. This is going to become the nose and the upper lip. And I don't want too much of either, so, and this will bridge right up to the top of the head here on the forehead. Alright, and I want to bring this down and seam it into the nose here in the corner. I want to flatten it out, bring it in here, flatten it out and bring it up here. And yes, this is a huge nose, but it's not staying. But you can't bully the clay into being more than it is, so you give it more than it needs, and then you take some away. Get started. And as I said, this is also going to be the upper lip. Okay, and I can see that I need a little more clay going down into this eye. I'm not trying to match the two sides right now because I haven't started doing any of the detail above this eye yet, thinning out that lid, which I guess I could do a little bit of. Round that up out of the way. Keep that moist. Totally. Brush. Okay, now make sure nothing over dries here. I'm going to smooth that, smooth that. See that build up on the edge of that knife right there? You want to remove that because that's going to be a very blunt cut, and you don't want a blunt cut. Okay, we're not making a witch, so let's get rid of some of that bump on the top there. Or that is what she's going to look like. Alright, and again, the water. Don't let a lot of water pool down in this eye area because it will turn that clay into soup. So if you see water has dripped off your fingers and it's down in that eye socket, wipe it out. And don't worry if the paper clay gets on your acrylic eye, because you can easily wipe it off with a clean wet brush later on. It'll just wipe off. Just don't scratch it in the meantime. With too coarse of a brush, use a nice soft synthetic brush. Okay, now I'll sweep this down into the face. If it looks like you still have, what is going on here? Oh, that dropped. Hold on. Okay, better. Chin is drying out. I don't want that yet. No drying yet. Okay. Let's take some of this away on that side. Okay, and now this I'm going to press into the face here, like this. I need a little bit of clay right here. to become her upper lip, and it works best if it grows right out of that nose area. Okay, you'll see why once I get this a little further in. And the stylus is a really good tool to use in this area because that's just such a smooth shape through there. It's almost round, and you want to come roll up the bridge of the nose. Nice smooth little shape. Establish that peak, that bridge of the nose line, and bring it on down. And just keep smoothing in the same direction, and you'll get a nice shape to the bridge of the nose. Figure out where you want the ball of the nose to be. Take your, oops, wrong tool. Let's use this one. And you're going to push down here and back and pull down the upper lip. It has a curve to it. Okay, I use this tool to create the ball head of the nose, like this, and the septum, which is here in the middle between the nostrils. Okay, trying not to squish the tip of the nose too much. And I want this nose to be pretty flat, so I'm going to push this clay back up into the side to become that nostril without misshaping the septum. And that clay, like I said, it rolls from the inside of the nose and rolls out, right out to the top lip. Okay, and now I'm going to push this clay back. Make sure you can see. I'm going to push it back like this underneath, ever so slightly. And then I'll use my brush to kind of round it back over here and become a nostril. There it goes again. Come on, computer. I have to figure out how to change that setting so it stops trying to turn itself off. And I can't see if you can see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm probably going to make this a little smaller because that is looking kind of masculine to me still. I'll keep working on it. Okay. Okay, the other side. Come back in. Like that. Make sure those nostrils aren't too big. I don't want Michelle Pfeiffer small, but something in that range would be good. The septum, I think I maybe don't have enough ball here, but alright. And you're going to want to keep cleaning your tools because the clay will dry on them, and instead of smoothing, it's like a serrated blade. It just gouges and makes a mess. Let's push, shape that nose a little more. The same with the paintbrush. You got to keep it, make sure you keep things clean. Even if you have to keep cleaning them in that bucket of water you have over and over and over again. So if your tools get all gunked up, they don't function the way you expect them to, and then you just make more work for yourself. Okay. Now she has, I don't like her cheeks are awfully flat, and I think the bridge of this nose is still too high, so I'm going to reduce its height a little by moving this clay down towards the eye, because I don't like how that looks either. Let's see. I have sunlight, I have artificial light. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I was just cleaning my brush again. A whole lot of back and forth trying to get the look that you want, but you just want to keep at it until it lands in the vicinity of what you want, height-wise, size-wise. And you can, if what you have is too much clay, flatten it out, which is what I just did, and then come in with a knife and take away the bulk that way, because shaving it off an eyelid is not easy. If your clay starts drying out, just wet it again. Okay. Oh, and if you cut it off, make sure you go underneath with a paintbrush and smooth your lines again, so it's not a total wreck. Okay, I have too much clay here. That does not look like a feminine shape. I think this eye might have moved too. Yep, get over there. You get over there. Okay. Maybe too much clay above this eye as well. Okay. And you can remove clay after you've done all of this other stuff too. Look at her profile. Oh yeah, that's it. That is not what I want. That nose is way too big. I'm just going to do a Hollywood surgeon maneuver here and just shave that off. Okay. Try to keep that wet. Get pretty cakey here. Some more water. And you can see the clay starts to build up on your hands. You have more texture there than you want. You just got to wipe it off. Okay. I also don't like how much forehead I have here. I'm going to take some of this away. And maybe a little bit here, and a little bit here. The shape of the head is totally up to you how you want to do it. Every human is different. Then you get into fantasy creatures and they're all different too. So it can be a personal choice how you want it to turn out. It can be stylized, or you can go for extreme realism, which is entirely doable. It's just a painstaking process until you really get it down. So depending on how far into sculpting you are, I'm not sure that the first heads you do should be, you should shoot for realism. I think maybe start off with a stylized head or a character head, like maybe do an elf or a goblin or a fairy, where you don't have to worry about anything but proportion. You know, that the features of the face are about where they should be, over them being perfect human proportion. That way you'll have more fun and enjoy the process instead of it being painstaking and annoying, which it can be. Once you get a little more practice at what the anatomy is supposed to look like, you don't have to sit there and play the game of, you know, what is different in this picture. Okay, at this point, I'm going to take a break. I try not to do any work off camera, so the video ended up 3 hours long, and the only way to make it more convenient for you to watch is to divide it into 3 sections, 3 roughly 1 hour sections. If you want to get notified when the other 2 sections are uploaded, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, please give it a like. I really appreciate the feedback. If you have a question or other comment, leave it in the comments below. Again, I appreciate the feedback. I decided to start making tutorials again, and that's because I love helping people. I do. If you need reference photos or anything along those lines, please feel free to message me. You can go to my Facebook page for the channel, which is in the description below, the description of the video, I should say. And I keep tons of reference photos there that you are more than welcome to download and use. The ones from my previous videos are also on that page. And again, thank you for watching. Sections 2 and 3 will be coming along soon. Have a good day.